The gymnasium smelled like rubber mats and cold air. It was a large space, the kind that had once been used for something industrial, with high ceilings and bare concrete walls and long fluorescent lights that hummed faintly above everything. Someone had cleared the center of the room and laid down a square of padded flooring, dark blue and slightly worn at the corners. Around the edges, a row of folding chairs had been set up, and most of them were already occupied. Daniel Reeves arrived 7 minutes early. He signed in at a folding table near the entrance, wrote his name in neat, even letters, and took a numbered card. He was given the number 9. There were 11 candidates in total, which meant he would be one of the last to go. He found a spot along the wall and stood quietly, one hand resting on the strap of his gym bag. He was not the biggest man in the room. He was not the loudest. He was lean but not imposing, and his face had the particular kind of stillness that comes not from coldness, but from a life spent learning how to manage things alone. He was 38 years old. He had a daughter named Lily who was 7, and she was at school right now, probably drawing horses in her notebook the way she always did on Tuesday mornings. He thought about that for a moment, and it settled something in him. The tryout had been posted through a private security network. A high-profile CEO named Richard Cannon was expanding his personal protection detail. The position paid well. More importantly, it had structure. Regular hours. Benefits. The kind of stability that a single father building a life from the ground up does not take lightly. Daniel had spent 12 years in the Army, 4 of them with a special operations unit. After his discharge, he had worked private security contracts overseas for 3 years. When Lily's mother left, he came home. He had been doing smaller work since then. Local contracts. Steady but modest. This job would change things. He looked around the room. The other candidates were large men, most of them. Several were clearly former athletes. A few had the particular posture of men who had been praised for their size their entire lives and had come to expect a certain reaction when they walked into a room. One man in particular stood near the center of the space, arms crossed, talking loudly to another candidate. His name, Daniel would later learn, was Bryce. He was 260 pounds of organized confidence, with a background in competitive fighting and a way of filling up whatever space he was standing in. Bryce looked at Daniel once, briefly, the way you glance at something you've already decided is not worth your attention. Richard Cannon came in at exactly 9 o'clock. He was a compact man in a charcoal blazer, mid-50s, with sharp eyes and the practiced calm of someone accustomed to making fast decisions. Beside him walked his head of security, a former federal agent named Warren, who carried a clipboard and said very little. Warren explained the format. Each candidate would spar with Bryce for 90 seconds. The goal was not to win. The goal was to demonstrate composure, technique, and awareness under pressure. Bryce was the benchmark. He had held the position for 2 years. He was there to test, not to be tested. The first few candidates went in. Most lasted the full 90 seconds, though not comfortably. Bryce was controlled but thorough. He did not embarrass anyone. He simply made it clear, in the quiet language of physical pressure, that he was better. The room warmed to him. People laughed at his jokes. Richard Cannon watched from his chair with steady, evaluating eyes. When Daniel's number was called, there was a brief pause as people looked around to find him. He stepped forward from the wall, set his bag down, and walked to the center of the mat. Bryce looked at him with a half smile. "You sure you're in the right room, friend?" he said, not cruelly, just casually, the way a man speaks when he already knows the answer. A few people smiled. Someone made a quiet sound. Daniel did not respond. He stood at the edge of the mat and rolled his shoulders once, slowly, and waited. Warren called the start. What happened next was not dramatic in the way that movies make things dramatic. There was no roar of effort, no long exchange of blows. It was quiet and very fast and very certain. Bryce moved forward with the confidence of a man who had done this dozens of times and expected the same result. He reached for a controlling grip at the shoulder. Daniel was no longer where he had been. It was a small movement, a fraction of a step, a redirection of weight, the kind of thing that takes years of specific practice to make feel effortless. He used Bryce's forward momentum the way a river uses gravity, not fighting it, but guiding it somewhere it had not intended to go. Bryce went down, not slowly, not dramatically. He simply went from standing to the mat in a single, clean, unavoidable motion, and he stayed there for a moment, blinking at the ceiling, working out what had just happened. The room was very quiet. Daniel took a step back and stood with his hands loose at his sides. He was not breathing hard. He had not broken a sweat. He looked the same as he had when he walked in, calm and unhurried, like a man who had simply done a small, familiar thing. Bryce got up. He looked at Daniel for a moment, and then something shifted in his expression, the half-smile fading into something more considered, more real. He gave a short nod. Richard Cannon leaned forward slightly in his chair. Warren made a note on his clipboard. After the tryout ended, Cannon walked over to Daniel himself. He did not congratulate him in the loud way that men sometimes congratulate each other after a display of strength. He just asked a few questions, straightforward ones, about experience and availability and whether Daniel had any commitments that would affect travel. Daniel answered each one honestly. Then Cannon said, "Is there anything you need me to know?" Daniel thought for a moment. "I have a daughter," he said. "She's 7. I need to be home most nights by 6. Cannon was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "We can work with that." Daniel drove home that afternoon through light traffic, the windows down, the city moving past him at an easy pace. He picked Lily up from school at 3:15, and she climbed into the back seat with her backpack and a drawing she had made, a horse standing in a green field under a yellow sun. She handed it to him over the seat. "It's for you," she said. "Because you had a big day today." He took the drawing and looked at it for a moment. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I did." He folded it carefully and placed it on the passenger seat, and he drove them both home through the warm afternoon light, steady and unhurried, the way he did everything. Word count. Approximately 1,290 words.